Yes, what we have tonight is just a little PowerPoint. Don't get nervous, it's not like overwhelming. I mean, I am an academic, but we'll just keep it to this is a beginning meeting. And don't get nervous if you're here to be a member of Easthampton Neighbors. That's good and fine. What we're going to do today, however, is look at the difference between being a member, which means anybody can be a member. I think most of you have heard about Northampton. We'll be referring a lot today to Northampton's Neighbors. They have 600 members. So that means they're all just donating, they're supporting, there's not even a fee. They can be any age, they don't have to be seniors. To get services, you have to be 55 and over. So what we're doing tonight is really important for me because I actually have a very good friend over at Northampton Neighbors, so wanted to start it here and didn't really know folks, just moved in about a year and a half ago. So I approached Brendan and he's been great. He's just a lifesaver, knew about Northampton and said, yes, great to do it here. So again, right from the top, I want to be clear what we're trying to do. We're trying to sort out the people who want to be a member, which, by the way, Brendan and I feel strongly it should be free membership. In other words, you're just a member, you will donate if you want along the way, but there's no membership fee. But we'll talk more in a minute. The model can be a fee membership. In other words, other communities, you pay to get into it. So anyway, the difference is, again, you're a member, it's free, you can be any age, but what we're looking for a core group. And if each one of you was ready to sign up, great, you know, I'd say perfect, we've done our work. But again, you need to listen up and listen to the work involved. I know everybody's busy. Some people obviously still have full-time jobs, 1, 2, whatever. So you might not be able to be part of the, quotes, core group. So that's what we want to do today. My objective is to really lay it all out. What is the model? I'll try to say the work involved. However, it's unpredictable, and as you know, it will vary. We'll talk more specifically about that later. But by the end of the day, I think you should really have a pretty good idea. I think a lot of you already do. We already talked before, some of you, that you already want to be part of this core group, quotes, which again is going to be the group that makes the whole launch of this. In other words, we're going to form a board, we're going to launch this thing, which is this great model. It's just very, very exciting to be part of it. I'm really excited. I was just talking to Joe and we were talking about our international experiences, and that's what I've been doing the last 5 years, heading up grants for global women's groups internationally. And I decided moving here, I love the way Easthampton's growing and I love the direction. I decided I want to do something here for a change. I'm here, I want to help this community. So this is my community now. So that's where I'm at. And again, I think we need to go around the table. I know that's just part of what we do, and especially in this group, it'll be important. So that's the first thing on this is our agenda. Again, we're going to figure out where we all are. Hopefully by the end of the night, you're going to hear about the movement for the villages, and you're going to hear about the next steps for the core people. We don't necessarily need you to sign up tonight, but to think about in the next couple of weeks if you really want to go forward. Okay, so that's the agenda. So again, I'm Stephanie. I just moved here. My husband's a retired physician, and right now what we're doing is global health studies internationally, as I said. However, my new direction is going to be locally here in the community. I did teach at Arizona State University and then at Westville State for 35 years. And I taught environmental science and regional planning, urban planning. I have 3 grown children and 6 grandchildren, 2 of whom are here in Easthampton. That's why we moved nearby. So it's really fun to pick them up from Whitebrook Middle School and do all the stuff for them here, go to all the games. So we're here in Easthampton. The other thing I did was urban planning for a long time with Wayne Fiden, actually, in Northampton. So that's why I'm saying I see the direction, I see the Eastworks, and I see the mills, and I see what we're doing here, and I love the pond. I'm a kayaker, and I just love the area. So I think there's so much going for us right here, and it's very exciting to launch into this at the same time. I'm excited about that. So that's my other whole schlick. I did urban planning for a long time. So that's where I'm at. Okay, Joe.
Oh, so
Just a little bit. I mean, I know these things are.
okay. Hi, I am Dr. Joe Banis. I am retired from the Commerce Department. During much of my federal career, I was an organizational psychologist, and my area was conflict, so I helped organizations that were experiencing conflict to resolve it one way or another and get become better functioning. Interestingly, I'm an Easthampton native. I grew up here, went to high school here, then moved away. Worked in a number of large cities for the government, primarily Washington, D.C., but also in St. Louis and other places like that. Spent some time overseas. And then it's interesting, having retired, to come back here and see, you know, what's become of the town that I grew up in, which is no longer a town, but now a city. So anyway, I had no advance notice as to, you know, the concept or the model here, so I'm just here to try to get a better understanding of the operational concept here and what part I might be able to play in. So that's basically it.
Hey, Greg.
I'm Stell Stas, and I was born and brought up in Easthampton, moved away for a good part of my adult life, and chose to come back. And when I did, knew that I wanted to get involved with elders. It's what I do for work, and I work for an elder law attorney and work with folks who are going to nursing homes who need services in the community. So I wanted to be on the board of Council on Aging. Did that, then I went and I'm on the board at Highland Valley Elder Services, and I loved all of it. I guess it's what I was meant to do. And it is, it's fascinating, I love it, and I'll probably do it for a long time, and I'm still working full time. So.
Hi, I'm Jim Davenport. I'm a retired nurse. I'm currently the chair of the Easthampton Commission on Disability, and that's sort of where my primary focus is regarding this group. I'm also on the planning board and on the Fair and Affordable Housing Partnership for the city.
That's it.
That's it. Isn't that enough? And today my neck isn't moving.
Oh, no.
I'm Alita Kennedy, and I'm on the Commission for Disability and the Fair and Affordable Housing Partnership also. And, well, to be honest, you know, in the last couple of years, you know, I got involved with Habitat for Humanity and built myself a house along with a couple thousand other people. Yeah. And it's lovely, except that we have a shared driveway and we're responsible for our own driveways. I can't shovel snow. I haven't figured out how to attach a shovel to my lawn.
Yeah.
I can't afford somebody to come in and do it. I went out and bought a snow blower, but none of us are able to push it, you know. And so we just wait till the snow melts. And I was thinking, you know, we should set up some kind of thing, because there are people that are willing to volunteer. You know, at one point I was desperate, and I went on Facebook and explained my sad plight, you know, and I had all kinds of people show up. So I thought, you know, maybe we could organize this. So my interest is in helping the disabled as well as the elderly, because I qualify for both, you know. I have no clue how many people we have in our community that are disabled and own homes or are responsible for their own driveways or lawns or whatever. So I'm just sniffing around to see what looks good, you know. If it can't be incorporated into the COA's program here, then maybe we can set up our own, but you know, we're just seeking knowledge at this point.
My name is Brendan Rogers, and I'm the director here at the Easthampton Council on Aging. I've been here for 4 years total, and when I started I was in outreach, and so I was on the front line working with 55 plus population here in the community. And the demand for these things, exactly what Alita's talking about, is that it's so overwhelming that our department isn't able to handle it alone. There are certain things that we can address, and there's certainly programs and services that we can plug in. But when we're talking about individuals who just need help shoveling, who need help changing a light bulb, and if this can help them stay in the community safely, I mean, that's our biggest concern, is that we have people who are at risk that could potentially become seriously injured trying to do a normal task that maybe other people wouldn't have an issue with, but we have to look at our population and who we're serving. And so I feel like, to avoid these situations where people end up in long-term care because they had a really nasty injury that placed them in that type of setting, why not get ahead of it and provide some type of preventative services? And so, as I said, our department has a certain reach, and certainly we can help people in many ways, but when we talk about at this level, we need more support, we need a strong volunteer network, which we don't have right now. And I can say that we have wonderful volunteers at the senior center, but it's just not enough to take on the demand. And by 2035, based on our needs assessment, we're looking at a major population boom with our 60 and up. So I think it's really important to start getting ahead of this now and to figure out ways that as a community we can handle this, and as a senior center, and how we can support each other in this role.
Thanks. My name's Shelley Hardy. I'm an Easthampton native. It's like you guys all have way better credentials in the academic field, but I am a Northampton neighbor volunteer, and I love it. I think I started really being passionate about it. My whole family has been, they're either involved with Riverside Industries, or my sister and my mom are both, work with in the nursing home systems, and my stepfather who raised me, my father, he was a milkman, and he sort of kept his, as the big companies took over, he kept his small milk route to help these elderly folks that couldn't drive anymore, and that was their only way of getting, their dairy products or milk and for their cereal or whatever. So it's always been a part of my household. So I just really want to be a part of it. And I'm a realtor now, and I see the 55 plus, and there's such a extent. So you have these first-time home buyers who are so happy, and then you have the other extreme where it's people are having to move out to assisted living. And so because of that, I've ended up doing so much stuff for these folks who have to sell their homes, like moving boxes or changing a light bulb. So it's sort of organically happened that way. So it's sort of a good fit for me. So I'm really excited that it's come to Easthampton, because I've been doing it in Northampton, even though I live in Easthampton. I've been doing it in Northampton, and I get so many emails every week, and just bringing someone to the hair salon to get their hair washed once a week is just like a huge thing. So I'm really happy that this is happening here. So as much as I can do, I'm doing it. So needed, yeah. Okay. You're up.
Hi, everybody. I'm Barbara Sheehan. I'm not a native, but I've lived in Easthampton for more than 40 years. And I'm a retired educator. And I have friends that live in Northampton that are involved in the Neighbor to Neighbor program. In fact, last year I was in desperate need of somebody to take an air conditioner out of my window that I couldn't remove. It was big. And fortunately, one of my friends in Northampton found somebody in Northampton to come to Easthampton to remove my air conditioner. And I know a lot about the program through her, and I think it's really exciting that somebody has taken the first steps to get it going. Most of the people on the street that I live on are over the age of 60, and we all want to stay in our homes. So I think it would be great if it started here.
I'm Owen Zaret. I'm also not an Easthampton native, but Easthampton's been my adult home. Essentially, I moved here in 2000, so shortly after I finished up college and some other post-college work. And this is really where I consider home, basically, at this point. It's the only place I've really lived outside of school and where I grew up in Connecticut. I'm very proud of this community. I'm a local healthcare provider, I'm a physician assistant, I work currently in orthopedics. I've been doing that for 16 years. I went to Springfield College for my PA degree after obtaining a degree in biochemistry, and I have a certificate in massage therapy. I practiced massage therapy in the Valley in the late 90s. Feels like a long time ago. But I'm also an Easthampton City Councilor now in my first term as a new elected official. And it's funny because I was thinking, you know, we've talked a little bit about how I could get more involved with the Council on Aging, and then I had spoken to a friend who grew up here, and she was talking about how her parents feel really kind of marginalized. They're not really connected to social media. They have a lot of specific needs, both financially and physically, and they kind of feel like they're getting kind of pushed out of the community. And then additionally, you know, as we enrich the community, and we have this new school coming in, therefore raising taxes, and all sorts of costs are going up in general across the country within our own municipality. You know, people are certainly, we touched on physical vulnerabilities and just the risks of moving an air conditioner, shoveling a driveway and such, but there's real financial vulnerability. Shelley kind of touched on that as well, that, you know, if every service that you pay for is just more and more dollars that you're taking away from yourself that might push you out of your house. And so if we can find ways to come together more as a community and enlist help that doesn't cost us anything, and also builds collaboration and builds bonds between generations and between neighbors, I think that's the ideal definition of a community. So I was literally kind of like rolling that around my head, and then this email came in inviting me to be here today. I was like, it was meant to be. So here I am. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that this is a great idea. It's a great concept, you know, as to, and, you know, I'm excited to be a part of it and kind of see where this goes. So thank you for letting me participate.
I'm Charlene Wood. We've lived in Easthampton for 12 years. We moved here from Amherst. We were in Amherst for over 20 years, and before that, Westfield. When we moved here originally, we bought one of the new condos on Route 10, Hamptons, and I was on board. And what I experienced there on the board was, because most of the occupants were over 55, and many of them were single women for whatever reason, and they had needs. They had a lot of needs, and it's just like you said, Brendan. I would get calls late at night. I need a light bulb change. My smoke detectors are going off. And so what we did as a board, there were 3 men on the board and 2 women, and the men kind of filled in and would do whatever had to be done. And finally what happened was, one of the guys built a business out of it. He made himself available, he didn't charge very much, and he was busy all of the time. So I saw that, and then after we lived there for 2.5 years, and then we built a small house because I didn't like living in a condo. And so after we built the house, I saw in the Boston Sunday Globe on Sunday a huge article about this. And I said, what a genius idea. Where is this happening and how can it happen here? Because I saw what happened at the condo, you know, I mean, it was unbelievable what these women needed, and I may be one of them someday. So when I saw this announcement, I thought, well, if I can be a part of this, then it's very exciting. I think it's needed.
My name's Eileen Myers. I'm a retiree from health insurance. I'm also vice chair of the Council on Aging. Is that my correct title? I was going to say co-chair, but I don't think so.
Now we change that.
Yeah. So, but I've been with the Council on Aging, I think, close to 3 years now, maybe more. I don't know.
Don't look at me.
It's still part of my memory. Why I'm here is because, to me, it's important to look at aging in place after going through my parents' poor health and watching their needs, and they were living in a condominium in South Hadley. The resources, it was draining on the family. We just didn't have a lot of time. And now that I'm retired, time is one thing I have. And I also volunteer with a Helping Hand. I'm also very involved with area veterans associations and do volunteer work on that. But to me, I mean, I was raised in a wonderful neighborhood, and I've carried that throughout my life. So each place I've moved to, it just seems like a natural thing to help out your neighbors, to be there for them, to make the casserole when they're sick, or help them shovel or snow blow them out. And you know, that's the way it should be if you can. But there's a lot of times people just can't. In the lifestyle we have going on now, people are just so busy, and it's hard.
They have to
So
work too.
we need,
Yeah.
we need something like this. And to age in place is my goal, and not to be a drain on my family. So that's why I'm here.
Hi, my name is Melissa LeVar Rogers, and I've lived in Easthampton since 1997, so most of my adult life. And I've been associated with Riverside Industries since 1998. I took a small few-year break after I had my 2 daughters, and it's where I met Brendan Rogers, who I'm also married to. And well, I started out there in an elders program, which doesn't exist anymore, but my job was to work one-to-one to bring get people out of their homes, out of nursing homes, and connect them into, just one-on-one with their community. So, accessing like the senior center in their town, or volunteering somewhere, or just getting to know people in their community, because there were people who didn't get out much. And the biggest reason I want to be involved in this is because it's really important to me for my children to grow up helping people and seeing me help people, and I want them to grow up to be helpers too. From the littlest thing, it doesn't take much to help someone, like changing a light bulb or something. Like if you just even make a connection with one person in the community that can call you when they need like a little thing done. I mean, when I first had my daughters, like my next door neighbor made us a meal, people I worked with brought me a meal. There were just little things that made life a little easier, and I just think it's nice because people could volunteer at the level that they're comfortable with, which could be, I can do these things or whatever, but I want to raise my children to be helpers, and so I want to do things that I can do with them so they can see and want to help too with them. So.
Perfect. What a great group.
Yeah.
Seriously. Okay. So let me do the teaching aspect, and we'll get down to the model. And please feel free to ask questions as we go along, obviously. That tends to be a better way to do it, actually. Okay, can everybody see? I know your neck is sore too. Can you want me to move back here? Okay, you're good? Okay, so we did the welcome. We're kind of thinking about why we're all here. We're going to try to think through how much time we have and where we might want to be. Believe it or not, I have a handout at the end that you can even take, because we professors always do things like that. So you can actually see the duties, and it'll make you hopefully be relaxed that you could do this. We have all these talents in the room. It's amazing. And if everybody can get us together, I was so nervous working up to this meeting. Like, uh-oh, what if there aren't other people out there? So if you can look at what we have down for duties, you'll see it's not really a big deal. In the beginning it is to launch it, but after that it's so fun, as you know, in Northampton. So, yeah. And the others who know Northampton's neighbors, right? Okay, so then what we're going to do, as we said, is move forward to look ahead at what we need to do, and then the next steps very specifically. All right, just a little bit about matching the village. So if you look across the country, and I have some brochures here that you can take. I have one each that could maybe have people copy them off or whatever, or take the information from them, because there's a website that's really important with this. It's called Village to Village Network. Yeah, it'd be great if you could even write it down, because we don't have enough brochures for everybody. Village to Village Network. So you can go on there and you can see, they have an interactive map. I can even put it up at the end if we have time, but you're such a great group. We're spending so much time discussing that that's our priority. So you can see across the country where it started and how you're going to have your model for Easthampton here. So what we do basically is we look at our beautiful downtown, what we have going on for housing, our mills, we're so unique, as we said, the Eastworks, all that's going on, the pond, the downtown now, we're gonna get the Arts Center again. Brenda and I were talking about the old City Hall. I mean, there's so much going on. So you kind of match up the model. You have to kind of think as you go along, what kind of model do you think we need here? It depends on geography too. In other words, when Northampton was first forming, I actually went over and asked them, would you like us to join you? I tend to be, impose on people because I figured, well, the geography is such, it made sense. However, they, and I understand now, doing this myself for the idea here, they were overwhelmed. And they figured we'll start in Northampton first. Our model's gonna be just for our community. And they added Leeds and Florence, as you know. So they didn't want to do the geography. In other words, if you look on the Village to Village network again, it'll talk about first decide if you want to do a hub in another little town, for example. Since we're here on our own, and since we're more unique, I'm assuming we're going to keep with Easthampton, at least for now. But again, it's something to think about. And those of you who are natives can add a lot for us. Those of you who have known Easthampton a lot longer than I. In other words, would you think it'd be best to go with Southampton? And, oh, okay. Okay, so that's what I thought we would get. So that's one of the first things you do. All right, that was a good response. But as you look at the interactive map, that's what I want you to do if you have some homework here. You'll see that loads of communities did go in together. For example, Wellesley and Dover, they're in the eastern part of the state, if anyone knows that area. They have a $945, I think, fee. And it keeps going. Because, why though? They have, Wellesley College swimming pool access. They have all these resources. That's what they wanted for Wellesley, Dover, or whatever the other one is. But for us, we have to think about, again, our housing, our downtown, our Manhattan Rail Trail. What's important to us as we think about how we want the model to go. Okay, then, this is where it all started, right? This is talking about the village model, and many of you already said it. It's aging in place, right? And we've all seen it and heard it, and more of us are gonna get it more, right? I had it early. I lost my parents very early, and I saw them, and I always said to myself, when I get older, I want to take care of people because I didn't get to take care of them. They couldn't stay in their own home. And I said to myself, I'm going to work at this. I'm going to see if I can find a community where the seniors can age in place. It's member-driven, and again, what happens is the volunteers are matched up with the seniors, as you all pretty much know already, who need help. So again, what I want to say, the second bullet there is really important. Again, I want to emphasize that you can still be a member. Again, Northampton has 600 members. And by the way, they're exemplary across the country, right next door to us. So that's my goal. You don't just belong to it. But within that 600 members, they have the seniors over 55 who qualify for services, and then they have their 70 trainers and volunteers. Again, we'll talk more specifics I'm sure you'll have more questions about that later, but just keep in mind you can still be a member, but just not part of the core group if that's your time constraint. This is usually the typical model, and this is what Northampton's done. Amherst just launched, by the way. We were in Amherst before. They're launching theirs as we speak. They've done a great job. It took them a year and a half, that's all, to get from this point to launching. Same with Northampton. So they're setting up their central office right now. So most of the models will have an administrative assistant, usually a one paid salary person. Some of them, however, again, if you go on the website, you'll see some of them are all volunteer. Somebody in the group, even in the project, let's say the core group, says, I want to volunteer I'm good at that. So they sit there and take down the senior calling in, matching up, as you said with condo, matching up. But most of them, if you look, the majority of them have that paid administrator. Amherst is going to, Northampton has. Any questions so far? Yes, Owen?
So are there grants available for?
Yes, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Again, I'm gonna be saying it all night, sorry, but they're on top of things. Northampton's had 3 grants. I know exactly where I've been working on grants, as I said, for 3 years, so I honed in on, they picked the right ones. Even Baker had some that he gave to communities, they got that one, yes, Joe?
I do have a question, because I understand from Northampton that there's their Council on Aging, but there's the Northampton Neighbors is a 501c3.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
could you explain why they've got that
Yeah,
organizational model and what are their alternative models?
we'll get to that, yeah. Okay, so, everybody understands the central model here with the central office, the referrals for services? So far, so good? Okay, yeah, we'll do the 501c3 next, because it gets kind of intricate and complicated. Okay, here's a little history. Again, it began in Beacon Hill, 2002. There were 11 neighbors who got together, and theirs, by the way, is, I don't know what their fee is now, it's in the thousands. You know Beacon Hill, John Kerry and whoever lives there. So they prefer to have big fees. Again, they're asking for different things. And then it moved across the country, and now we have, it's called 200 open villages, meaning they're not quite launched, more than 150 in development. And it's even spread to Australia, Finland, South Korea, it's all over the world now. Different places in the world are now doing it. We are the epicenter, again, because it started in Beacon Hill, and also because, you know, Massachusetts, we're just very progressive. We're great in solar energy, we're great in a lot of things, right? Well, here we go, we're the epicenter here. This is close to 30, 35, I'm not sure the latest count, just for Massachusetts. And those are the ones surrounding us. Northampton, Amherst, Shutesbury, Whately, Petersham, and one of the Berkshires. Okay, so there's the Northampton Neighbors one. As we discussed. And it's interesting to see how it breaks out, because we're talking about going to the saloon, the hairstylist kind of thing. What's important to seniors? The air conditioner that came up in the Globe. It's pretty much, I just met with Catherine the other day. She's the chair of the board over at Northampton Neighbors, and it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 at the moment. Now, to bring it down to Joe's question, and we'll get more to that in a minute, most of the models are doing the 501c3 because of the tax issues, and because of mostly volunteer people, and because they're getting donations from businesses. So they don't want to get taxed, so they're not going to be for profit. So that's why they're taking the model of a 501c3. And again, Northampton had them all lined up and ready to go. If you know Northampton, you'll know Goggins and Franklin, you know, all of them would just, and I'm sure here, hopefully we'll get some of the same results, businesses who want to donate or support.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
It says 600 members,
Mm-hmm.
but only 100 of them are seniors?
Yes, and 100 of them asked for senior services. There could be some seniors who don't ask for services.
I was under the impression that the organization was for seniors, but it isn't.
It is. But the members, anybody can be in there. I can have my grandchildren in there, like we're saying, because I want my grandchildren to learn. So the members are supporting the seniors.
The seniors receive the services,
Services,
but
right.
the members are all different.
All can be anybody.
Yes.
And some of
Yeah.
the seniors also volunteer.
Yeah,
Right,
some are
so if you look at the Venn diagram, you could be a senior, a member, and a volunteer, right?
Yeah.
Right. Any other questions so far?
Is there any particular reason why the population served has to be over the age of 55?
No, and some of the models are 60, some of them are, most of them are 55 or 60, I think. But again, that network tells you.
Okay. My concern is that there are people who are well under the age of 55 or 50 even, who have some sort of disability that, for them, something like this would be quite beneficial so that they too can age in place.
Exactly. We'd have to talk about that as a group. Again, I met with Catherine Baker, who is chair of the Northampton Neighbors, and they have the disabilities in another section of the community. In other words, they're covered by other organizations in Northampton. So for their model,
Do you know by whom? What other?
I know
Probably
ServiceNet,
Stavros,
ServiceNet.
Yeah.
So they're not, quotes, dealing right at the moment with, their model is,
Yeah, see, they've got ServiceNet, we don't.
yeah. So we'd have to consider that as for, again, as I said in the slide with the pictures, every community's different. You might not, and again, we have some medical people in here. One of the first things Catherine will tell you is they're not doing, obviously, patient care. Sometimes people are under the impression that you're going to have help with medical care. No. So that's a model that pretty much the village networks, pretty much across the country, is following. In other words, it gets really, however, my husband and I were talking, and he, in the past, he's done assessment portfolios, which would be a great idea. In other words, in Northampton, for example, the volunteers get trained. Somebody goes to train them. So my husband was suggesting, and he's done this before, have a retired, hopefully, physician, because they're so busy, as you know, when you're busy as a PA and a nurse, but have a medical person go and kind of evaluate that person in the home. In other words, does that physician think, healthcare provider think that this person can be living safely on their own and can suggest services, can suggest even medical services if need be.
Well, there's
So that's one way to
plenty
do
of outfits that provide home care, medical.
Yes, there are.
you know, And
Right.
a lot of them will provide housekeepers, homemakers, and that type of stuff
Right.
that helps. But there's still a lot of stuff that they can't or don't.
Don't do,
you know.
and plus you
And
pay for
that's the
those
cracks we're
generally,
trying to
right?
fill.
Yes, and you pay for those, right? The ones that are on the TV anyway.
It
for
depends.
ads. Yeah,
Well,
sometimes.
they're generally covered by Medicare, and people with disability are also on
Whether they're not.
Medicare, you know, a lot of
Right, no,
The home services are not covered by Medicare.
right.
And they're not covered by insurance either. And home health
care are you talking
services,
about?
home health services, unless you've been in the hospital and come out of the hospital, you might
Oh,
get it for a
okay.
couple weeks. They're not covered by Medicare or private insurance. You can be covered for home health services if you're on Mass Health. And I want to clarify the fact that just because ServiceNet doesn't have an office in Easthampton does not mean they don't cover services in Easthampton, as does Stavros
Right, Stavros does
for
too, yeah.
folks under 55.
Right, so I think that's the model again, that they're not, because you go back to the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 too on the other slide, they're so busy covering transportation and social visits and all the others that they've decided not to do those other services at this point. Maybe they'll change at some point. Okay, other questions? So, again, this is where we would have to go in thinking of launching. We would need a core group that's dedicated and committed to this. And we'd have to start having meetings, and we're talking about a public forum in May, hopefully even the 1st of May. A public forum would be good, because then you'd get more and more folks to join and be members. Again, keeping in mind, members just join. Just say you have these members and they're supporting you, and maybe someday they'll donate, maybe someday they'll volunteer, we don't know. But a public forum just to get the word out, to educate what we're about. This is again, the link, as I told you to look up. And what they offer, the second bullet there, is good, because they're a national organization and they provide you with a toolkit to do the 501c3 and to help you go through the steps. that is a membership. I'm kind of disappointed when I looked at it, to be honest. You have to pay for it, which seems kind of odd, but anyway. You pay for this membership, and I'll tell you how Northampton did it. By the way, Northampton started, some of you might know this, but there was a book club. They read Atul Gawande's book, Being Mortal. If you've ever read that, it's excellent. It's an excellent book. But they were a little book club and read his book and heard about the village concept, and that's how it started. They got together and said, okay, so they provided their own seed monies. Each one of them, there were 9 of them, I believe, and each chipped in $500. They wanted to be clear from the beginning to separate themselves from the senior center, from the council on aging. They want the governance and they want the financial to be separate. Because Brendan's busy enough, as we keep saying. It's an independent org. In other words, that's another reason why you want the 501c3, because it sets you up. This core group, the steering committee, would establish the 501c3, form a board of directors, develop a mission. I have a handout of this for you, by the way. Bylaws, the typical stuff you know. A lot of you are on boards, so you know. Build membership, solicit and train volunteers, and match up the seniors with the volunteers. The real fun part when you launch and you see it happening. So again, that's the process, and that's the way you would go towards launching it. And again, typically, and I asked the question over there too, how much time did you spend? You know, because I do have to leave periodically too to do my work. And they said in the beginning, it was probably every 2 weeks a meeting, and then it got a little bit more intense, planning the public forum, whatevers, but not overtaxing. The chair of the board spends a lot of time. But if you have a well-distributed group of skills, which I can see right away we do here, in other words, some person's good at media, some person's good at, doing the Facebook page, some person's good, different people are doing different things, and that's how it carries off. So again, they couldn't answer me exactly how much time they spent, but in the beginning it was probably a meeting every couple of weeks, and some days they'd have Saturday meetings that just get together because they wanted to. And we'll talk in a minute about what they're doing now, and so they're having fun things now, fun meetings. Okay, so any questions on that? So far, so good? Okay. So then the last one, because I'm just a real visual person, I think we all are in education, right? So I just wanted to put it all together and let us see who's working where and where we're at right now and where we're going. So again, I hope this helps. Easthampton over here, they've been invaluable. I mean, I can't say enough for Brendan. If it wasn't for Brendan, we wouldn't have this meeting, and I probably would have just sat home. And I've been thinking about this for like a year. I would have sat home and said, well, I don't really know anybody. How am I going to meet people? So his role here was integral. And the needs assessment he mentioned is critical. I know in planning, I was in planning for many, many years, and most of the time we had to, fight and scream and holler for people to get a needs assessment. Well, it's already done. It's excellent. It was done by UMass. And I read through the whole thing, and it's just showing exactly what we're all talking about. The percentage, the 30% will be over 60 in 2030. All those details. All those databases are all done. They asked them about services they needed. They asked them about where they think they're going to be 5, 10 years. It's all laid out for us. So they've been invaluable, and again, working along with them, because the analogy is, if you look on the website again, the analogy is within the walls here, you have senior services. People think of this as they come here to do things. They come here to do the gym, they come here to meet folks, play pool. But the village model is the opposite. There's no walls. The village model is out there in the community. So that's the difference between the Council on Aging and the village network model. Okay, so here's the members again, so we're clear that members are here, but this is our little core group here. The core group, the organizing team, who's gonna get everything launched. And out from there comes the board of directors, and they're gonna do the typical things, direction, goals, fiduciary responsibility. This core group can continue and do operations, education programs. Right now, Northampton's really in the fun phase. They've set up special interest groups. So say somebody likes hiking, so they say, I want to have a hiking group on Fridays. They have so much going on. They have the time now to do it. So they spend their, one time they had a retreat and just spent the whole weekend. It's just really fun for them. They set up book clubs and ukulele lessons and
Movies.
movies, yes, so they go to the movies. So anything that someone wants to do with the seniors quotes, or go with them or be part, they do. So that's really a fun place to be right now, because they've already launched, they go in and they see the administrative assistant has the web sheet all done. So it's really fascinating to be at that stage when you see all these seniors are matched up. So that works that way, and there's the coordinator. Again, I called it coordinator because it's called different things. Administrative assistant, coordinator sometimes can even be a volunteer person in some of the models. The volunteers are over here, they get vetted, they get trained, they get quarried. So you have to watch all that. And with the 501c3, as you asked before too, Joe, it's a whole insurance bit. You have to be careful, right? Especially nowadays. So you're covered. In other words, if you go through that toolkit, if you're a member of the network, they'll show you how to apply for the insurance, the whole liability thing. Go through the 501c3. Now, my son-in-law is head of the softball league, and he told me that someone in Easthampton just did the 501c3 for them. So I'm not sure. We might find somebody. I said, how did you get to be a 501c3? And he said, oh, well, they had a volunteer CPA person who does all the recreation. So those things happen too. In other words, all of a sudden he had a 501c3. So they kind of seem overwhelming right now, but now he's ahead of the whole softball league. It was nothing when he got here, and it's like all these girls playing softball, so it's really fun. So hopefully we get people to help us. So this side obviously is the service providers, and this side is the services needed. And again, you can see the arrows because they're crossing over. Some members might need services if they qualify. Again, you can set the cap where you want it. This bit down here is interesting, again in Northampton, the discount services. That was a good question before about having your shoveling done. If you have landscaping and it's just a couple times to mow the lawn because you needed a hip replacement, let's say, the village covers it. But say you want to get it ongoing. Northampton now has instituted, they call them strategic partnerships and donations for, lesser monies for services. So for example, a landscaping company would give the seniors who are members of this reduced rate. So they're again at that phase, they're so developed that they're at the phase they can start having strategic partnerships and businesses that have discount services. But this model, in the beginning at least, certainly doesn't do that. In other words, we're not going to be able to say to someone calls up and says, well, I need my lawn mowed all summer. No. But eventually they have these vetted services. That's pretty cool. Questions? That's a lot, I know. It's a lot to assimilate.
Do you know if they're combined with the Chamber of Commerce at all in Northampton?
No, they get a lot of direction, and again, I was told to go see Mo here and to get help on lists of businesses and all that, but in terms of collaboration, again, they kept telling me to repeat this, that they don't want this, you collaborate,
Right.
but you don't want to put work on
Right.
the Chamber of Commerce, the Council of Aging,
Right.
anyone else. For governance, for fiduciary, because they already have their own, this is supposed to be an independent thing, and it's gonna grow on its own, but certainly in the beginning, you need help. And advice, and,
How many members are on their board?
9. It's been a little fluid. They're at the point now they've evolved, and they changed their chair, which is totally normal. The 2 co-founders now are not the chair. One of them turns out to be the grant writer. They sort of have their own designated as they evolved. Right. But
I'm just
currently
asking
they're 9.
because if they each gave $500, how much money did they have to start out?
Oh, in the beginning, I think there were 8 I think it was 4,000, I want to say, yeah.
Okay.
They used that in the beginning, right, to get, again, they didn't want to cross any lines. We're taking money from city coffers or,
Oh, we never got
so that's how they did it. Again, if you look, you'll see anecdotally, all kinds of models some of them have institutions sponsor them, some of them have universities. Depends on your model. But we're a working class community, mills and,
Well, we have a group that, of 50 women who get together and give away money.
really?
Yeah.
All right. So we need to find out about
Three of us belong to that
You're
group.
kidding.
Yeah.
And the chairs that you're sitting in are
Oh, yeah, we
part of
bought
our
these.
donation.
I love it. Okay.
So we can probably get money for that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is what our meeting's about, yeah. Okay. Super. Anything else? Again, it's a lot. Yeah, Brendan.
And I just, kind of going back to your point about the separation, and when we're thinking about the Council on Aging, we have our own services and what we're doing, and, we separate that from the Easthampton neighbors. And that's where I think, addressing maybe, or looking at other communities, not the Council on Aging's, but the
Right.
communities that are surrounding us, and possibly having them get involved, or even looking at whether or not, okay, we serve 55 and up, and that's what we're governed by. The municipality says this is who we're serving. But if you guys end up becoming successful and you develop your own private nonprofit, you can define
Yes,
the
exactly.
boundaries of which you
Right.
guys are going to be providing services to the community, especially after you find the needs and what the needs are of our
Right.
specific area. So I
Exactly.
think those are things to think about. So if we just separate this idea of what we are versus what the neighbors are, and I think what our role is, what I see as our role as the Easthampton Council on Aging is, we want a continuity of services. We want to be able to work with Easthampton neighbors because, like I said, going back to this idea that we're not far-reaching enough, and we know that there needs to be more of an effort. And so, whether it's creating a headquarters for you guys to start off with, or possibly query checking, people who are coming into the group, things like that can help ease some of those, issues that you might have when you first start off as, an organization. So.
Right, perfect. By the way, before I forget, because I had a note here to remind myself, the name, you don't necessarily say Easthampton Neighbors. First of all, I was wondering if there's another club, there's something on Facebook called.
Oh,
Easthampton
that's just
neighbors
like
or-
a group like that's
Yeah,
nice.
I know, but is it the same name?
It's Easthampton Friends and Neighbors.
Yeah.
Friends and
Yeah.
Neighbors, I
It's a
thought,
community
okay.
Facebook group.
It's, yeah,
But
it's
the
not
point is,
unorganized.
the point is the name.
Yeah.
If you look, again, I keep referring to the link because it's fascinating, you gotta go on the link. For example, on the Cape, there are 5 villages, and one is called Bay to Sound. Can you guess? Yeah, the Bay to the Sound. Whatever the one is, Barnstable to, you know what I mean, the Bay to the Sound, the geography of it all. They didn't wanna name themselves Brewster Neighbors and Hyannis, so they named themselves Bay to Sound. So anyway, the name is even up, as Brendan's saying. I don't know about Mount Tom, how many times that's used, just throw some things at you. I don't know about even putting my in front of it, my neighbors, my Easthampton, I don't know. Anyway, I throw it out because sometimes you can be clever that way too, or you don't necessarily want Easthampton Neighbors. I think it's still cool, it's
Easthampton
EN, I don't know if anyone else has.
You can have the national line of neighbors.
I like alliteration, so that.
I was gonna say with the pond,
That-
yeah. You could, anyway, it's just something, all these things, you can do your own thing. I just remembered, Stan, you never introduced yourself. Oh my goodness, we're at the end and we forgot.
I'm Stan Diamond. I'm the Vice President of Easthampton Media and am a Easthampton resident. I've been here since 2015, so I'm a newcomer, but I love it out here.
Great. Okay, so anything else? Again, what the first slide was, remember, I was trying to not force, but to just try to say in terms of a timetable, because we want to get the momentum, keep the momentum, we thought that, you know, and I'm saying we because so far it's Brendan and I, when we could possibly meet again, what are good times, the people who are going to be totally into this and interested, maybe you should just call me first. That'd be a good idea, so you want to think about it, or what do you think's best there? Because I really want to get started, and I'm trying to think, okay, who has enough time here?
What is the handout that you brought?
Oh, the handout is more academic. Oops, excuse me, my pocketbook is there. Okay, this is just dealing with real nitty-gritty, so get you to think more about.
It'll take about.
Yeah, take a bunch.
I can share it for them, so.
Yeah, and get some there, yeah. We're there. Okay, so this, again, is pretty much what we went over, but more nitty-gritty, so you'll,
Yeah, actually, we can just.
I'll do
take a
screenshot
picture.
and send it to
oh, we need more?
Do you need one?
I have an extra.
I can
Oh, you can share it?
I'm just gonna steal this first.
Okay, Brendan's got one.
My wife's got one, so.
Stan, you got one.
I'm gonna steal this.
Please, thank you.
All right, so again, this is just more specific, so you could decide, I think, where you think you might fit. It might get you to that point quicker, I guess.
You want to give us some contact information for you?
Yes, and so, yes, let me do that.
Yeah.
So let me give you my email, that's the best way, right? So again, Stephanie Kelly, Kelly.
All one word?
Oh, that's just my name again,
Oh,
right?
okay.
It's like my name,
I was
Melissa,
saying
yeah,
that.
right, no. So the email is sbkel 1948,
2 L's.
no, 1 L, @gmail.com. I'll do it again. Okay, so it's SB, all lowercase, sbkel, KEL, 1948, @gmail.
You're also on the email distribution.
Yes, I'm on the email distribution. Let me give you a phone too.
Kelly with an E or just a Y?
Just a Y, Kelly, yeah. Let me give you phone, 413-531-2450. Now again, I did my own flyer. If someone really needs this, I have a couple here. You can even copy them and I think Brendan's gonna do a couple more or whatever. But who really has contact with other folks or would really want a flyer to just even copy, or who really needs one is what I'm asking, because I only made 5.
What is the flyer
The
for?
flyer's telling more about what we talked about today, and it's to get people, we need people on board.
Well, I would like to put in some social
Yeah.
media.
All right.
And also-
The one Cottage Street building where I work would be a great place to
Oh,
put
it's
up
just-
on the.
If I run out, we'll
I can
get
scan this
it.
and send it to you.
Also, if I can send this piece of paper around, if everyone wants to give me their email address, I can take a screenshot of this and PDF it to everyone.
Oh, perfect, you know, I even need that, John,
Yeah.
because I didn't get everybody's names right. Thank you.
Yeah,
But I have a couple more if somebody else
Sure, you want
wants.
to do that?
yeah. PDF.
Yeah, that's
Scan it on my
perfect.
phone.
I know, scan it for me or
Yeah.
whatever you
Okay.
use, yeah.
What we're looking at is more people, you know, we want to say, we have 100 members. You don't have to
We
do
should, I
anything,
think it
it's
should.
gonna be free, I
It
think.
should be part of
Does
the.
anybody think we should have a fee? I
No.
don't think so.
No, I think it's.
So if you ask the neighbors, or ask the friends, right?
Yeah.
Who wants to join the village, and then we can advertise and say, oh, we have 100 neighbors already.
And I think a huge part of this is gonna be community outreach. I think,
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
organizing something for May, in the
Yes,
first week of May
right,
would
right.
be really crucial.
Yeah,
And then putting the word out there, even if you don't
Yeah.
think of yourself as a core member right now,
Right.
helping us to like pump the information out there to people in the
Exactly.
community and say, hey, coming, and we'll finalize the date, and this is something that Stephanie and I should probably figure out in the next few days or whatever.
Yeah.
But when we have a finalized date, for people to really get this information out for us in any way
Exactly.
possible,
Yeah.
Right.
to do an event here, you know?
Mhm.
Or if we thought we were gonna go beyond that, I mean, I'm open to different venues too, but certainly we have the space here, so I'd love to.
And it might be good to talk, like the neighborhood I live in, people aren't necessarily joiners, and it might be good for somebody, like I could make sure my neighbors know on my street, because 7 out of the 10 houses are people that are over the age of 65.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So-
perfect, perfect, yeah, Colin.
Well, one question was asked here, and I think it's really prudent in terms of starting to move the initiative forward. And the question is how quickly do you want to start moving forward, is getting social media presence, establishing a Facebook page.
Right.
So, I mean, when in the timeline do we want to start doing that?
I think we have to come up with a name for.
Yeah.
That's why I brought that up.
You can change
Yeah.
the name later,
Yeah.
so you can say East Hampton Neighbors Network or something, and then like change it later.
Yeah.
I like adding in neighbors helping neighbors. Because
Okay.
everybody can be a neighbor, but what are we doing? Yeah, we live near
Helping
each
neighbors,
other,
yeah.
what is it? It doesn't really describe. I just feel that if it's like Nashawanic neighbors helping neighbors,
Mhm.
it gets more buy-in to what we will be doing, rather than, okay, well, neighbors.
Can be
That's all
like a
I'm saying.
byline, so to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we like the pond name.
Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
Okay, I liked it.
It's easy to remember, it clicks, it rolls off your tongue. It does.
And Stephanie, I really also want to involve Northampton because they have a successful program. I think we already have a model right next to us
Absolutely. Yes.
that's thriving.
Yes.
So whether it came down to like, you know, developing bylaws or to looking at
Mhm.
like, you know, we can use this. I'm not saying we have to copy them, but
Mhm.
we're looking at a successful program happening right next door. So let's
Right.
use them. And Linda has
Linda's
already.
gonna come. Yeah, she was
Right.
gonna come tonight actually, but
Oh,
then
she-
at the last minute she couldn't.
Okay,
So we're cool. She'll
Okay.
definitely come to the forum.
great.
Yeah, and if anyone else needs somebody else from the board, whatever, but, yeah.
Okay, great.
Now, is there any, so I'm gonna compile all these emails and then everybody will have it. Is everyone okay with me sharing everyone's email?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Is it just these 2 pages that I need to scan, or was there something else?
What do we think? No, you don't need to go how.
I did scan it, but I didn't know if there was anything else, there's something glossy over there.
Yeah, no, I think the flyer is pretty much set up like the others, that,
Oh, okay.
the other
That's
models,
something
yeah,
different.
so.
Oh,
That
that's,
is
do you want me to
the,
send this to everyone as well?
well, does
That's our
everyone,
UMass.
this is the
assessment.
UMass survey, the assessment survey?
Oh, okay.
The needs assessment?
That was a great survey, I
Um,
remember that
Do
one.
you
Oh,
still have
great,
copies
yeah.
of this, Brendan?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think we have more
Copies?
upstairs off
Yeah, we
that.
can hand them out,
Oh, okay.
yeah, but whatever.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, do you have a digitized version of this flyer?
Yes.
Break that down?
I just did it myself.
Yeah.
You could email it to Liz, so she would print it.
Yeah, that'd be
It's
helpful.
a great flyer.
I would
It's
take-
a really-
Yeah,
You know, whatever announcement or poster, or whatever we do, we should certainly
you-
post
who
one
asked
at
us about?
Biggies, because a
Oh,
lot of
yes.
us stop there and read those.
Yes,
Yeah, that's a great place to put it.
yeah, it is.
The library, the capital of the library,
Uh-huh,
all the elderly housing.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's just a good way to.
It is huge to get people involved and volunteer, I think if we,
Just because people know.
well,
Right.
yeah, and that's why if we post them at the senior housing, which, the different housing authorities will let us do it. Just to let people know that it's gonna be there.
Exactly.
That it's starting, and this is
Uh-huh.
what,
I don't know.
Should, before we move this around, should we change the name?
Points from that survey.
What is
Oh,
it?
for
yeah,
the,
because the survey
name.
was,
Yeah, right here, it says, what is
pages.
East Hampton?
Oh,
I know, I was calling it East Hampton
Thank you.
neighbors because I wasn't sure, and I had in my mind, make sure I ask you all. It doesn't necessarily have to be Easthampton neighbors, correct? It's Northampton neighbors, I don't know what Amherst is.
So should we
Amherst neighbors, I think.
change that before we start blasting this off?
Well,
We're not
or
gonna cast it out to people, but.
I guess maybe to get it one more meeting would be a good idea, to see who's really involved, maybe
people
for the
could start coming
core.
up with name ideas
Yeah.
before then or something, just in case you have, someone has.
I don't know if people have had enough time tonight, I don't know. What do we think?
I think it's a good idea to just see what everyone else is doing, and do a little research maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I brought up the Bay to Sound, because, right, most people think you had to have
Right.
the city or town as the name, and it's not necessarily the case.
I got a question. This survey, it talks about a projected number of
Senior.
people, senior, people are gonna be by 19 whatever, 2000 whatever, we're gonna have so much percentage of senior residents. Where do they get that information?
From the
From the
census.
census?
Yeah,
We
so.
get from the census, but actually what we have in town right now, because 2 years ago I worked on a database, and we had 5,500 people over 55, in a city of 16,000 people. That's almost 30%.
Right.
Well, what we were wondering is, like I was saying before, our concern is that people on disability that are homeowners and need help with staying in their homes. We have no clue if we're talking about 5 people or 5,000 people, that kind of thing. I'm trying to figure out how could we find that out.
Oh,
Or
in
can we?
terms of people who are disabled?
Yeah,
Well, would the Commission of Disability have any information on that?
well, we're on the
I
COD.
know, right, so,
We don't know.
But you don't get it from the census, because on the census,
Yeah,
it
they
just
don't
gives
give you this.
There's
dates
no
of birth.
question about that.
It doesn't,
right?
yeah, there's no question, are you disabled, you know? People who list their occupation may list that
Oh,
they're
yeah.
disabled, but not
That
always.
that doesn't tell you a lot,
No, it doesn't, and it doesn't
we
give
need-
you
we're trying-
everybody who is disabled either.
Right, and we're trying to target people that are homeowners, that need someone to come in and change a light bulb. Like an example is, I've got the same batteries in my smoke detectors that I had when I bought the house 3 years ago.
Even renters would need help with that stuff too.
Yeah.
Because, like, even renters would need help with that stuff too, because
Yeah,
changing
this
the
is all
batteries and
homeowners.
light bulbs and the air conditioners and.
And actually, we do have, if you look at like the senior housing, it's a mixture of disabled and senior
Right.
housing. So we do have people living at the housing authority that certainly aren't meeting, the age group that we're dealing with.
Yep.
So,
Well, I think it depends on how big the group we're trying to target, how
Yeah.
big is that group of people?
yeah.
If it's a really small amount, can we kind of piggyback off of the Council on Aging's project here?
Yeah, well,
Or should we be looking for creating a smaller offshoot that maybe you guys could tap into? Maybe the village concept could tap into for help.
Yeah, and I think, and this is like, once again, going back to this idea that we're kind of on our own trajectory here with our
Right.
services, and then I think when we look at the neighbors, I think, like I said, we can, not we, but you guys can define those boundaries as time goes on, as you figure out what the community truly needs. It doesn't, I think, Stephanie, and I could be wrong, but I think you could probably include, units or groups as it progresses, if that was what, Easthampton truly needed, and there was, folks coming forward saying, I am disabled, I don't have access to certain services. That could be something that could be absorbed, maybe, right?
I think it's going to
'cause
depend on some of the funding, though.
Right.
It's like if we need funding, and if we obtain funding based on the senior population, then there might be an issue there, including other people that are not seniors.
Where our limitations too is that we're part of the municipal government, so our funds are very specific and they're
Yes, exactly.
closely monitored. But this, as a private nonprofit, there are different you know, options
Different
you guys can
avenues.
explore. Like, I can't fundraise from my department.
That's right.
So, but a private 501.
Oh,
People are
could
just
go
getting
out
older,
there.
basically, I mean, people
So,
who live here, a lot of people who
ask
live
for
here their whole
donations
lives
and,
are
you know,
just
be
getting older,
fundraising.
they're staying.
Yeah, but the town
Just
is
have people
growing.
to come in.
The town's
You know,
growing,
so
but
I think there are like options for funding.
well, that's not population-wise, but I think the makeup,
That's something we're
some of
gonna
the
have to
makeup
look
is
at.
changing.
Yeah.
To figure out where we're gonna
That's
go with
just
our
very concerned.
section here.
But, yeah.
Lots of possibilities.
You know, this whole concept, if it were to grow, if it was to become huge out in the country, you realize that what I learned by living in a condo was, this is where women go when you're widowed or divorced, a lot of times. Women over 55. And what I learned at the condo was, what people don't understand when they sign those papers at closing is you're responsible for that condo fee. And what they don't understand is we had like one bad winter, and there was a lot of plowing and a lot of shoveling, because it included shoveling walks. So when the landscaper who did our plowing and shoveling presented us with the bill for the winter, it was way in excess of what we had put aside in the treasury. So we had to assess everything. I think it was, I don't remember, I think it was another $600. And we had people, women, coming to our board meetings, asking for a private meeting, saying, I can't pay this. And we couldn't say to them, well, you have to pay it, because if we tell you you don't have to pay it, then we have to, this, and it was horrible. So with this concept, if it were to work and grow, you wouldn't be faced with that, right? You can stay in your home. And the other thing I learned in a condo was you send out things to bid, because if you can guarantee, like the landscaper or the snow removal guy, we're gonna give you, you know, whatever 10 or 20 houses to go to, we'll give you a better rate.
You'd also probably have to look for a flat rate as opposed to
Well, what you do
so
is
many dollars per visit.
you bargain with them. You say, look at this, you know, I got this kind of quote and this kind of quote and that kind of thing. And if they're competitive and they're hungry and they want the work, then you get a better rate. But there's a lot to this.
Yeah, sure. there
You know,
will be.
because the way I look at it now, after living in a condo over 55, and it's perfect for some people, but we're basically warehousing our seniors. You know, there are more and more, look at South Hadley, there are more and more and more of these condos going up for over 55, and this is where everybody's going.
Because they don't want the responsibility of taking
Right,
care of it.
right, but you'd be surprised at how many don't realize that when they sign those closing papers,
They
what
don't
they're
realize
responsible
that,
for.
and the costs are really not less expensive just
Oh.
because you have somebody doing all the work.
The fees are
The fees are
incredible, and they go up and they
That's
go
right.
up.
And
I was really excited about trying to get into a condo, just because I know that I can't do lawns and snow shovel and all that stuff. But I never could find one that I could handle financially.
Condos in Easthampton are very expensive.
Exactly.
Yeah, they used to be cheaper than
And the
buying
thing is,
a
we
home.
don't have any, what we don't have in this town is continuing care facility. We don't have someplace that has independent living, assisted living, and even a nursing facility. So anybody who lives here who needs any one of those three has to leave town.
Mhm.
They're
I think we
usually very
should buy
expensive,
where
though.
Tasty Top is and put in a continuing care facility there.
Well, I mean, we don't, I mean, other than Valley, we're getting in the weeds, but I mean, and I'm not talking about INSA, but, we're, I mean, we have Valley Medical, but we don't have really medical services in town, and that goes hand in hand with, I mean, and as our population ages, there's more and more need for a variety of medical services, and outside of Valley Medical, people have to either leave and go to, well, the medical center, or Cooley Dickinson or Bay State, they have to leave town. I mean, if we could have like more of a concentrated, you know, urgent care, primary care, with some focus on geriatrics, you know, some ancillary services here in town that were more centralized too. And I agree with, we also need, so, I mean, that's something, I think with One Ferry Street going up, there's opportunities to kind of focus on some of these things, so. but-
That's like in Northampton. Cooley Dick is sort of taken over Atwood Drive, and they're building they're working on their third building right now
Mhm.
for professional building for medical professionals. And this third building is huge. It's like twice the size of the first two. We need something like that, you know, and then Cooley Dick can kind of stretch out a little bit, or Holyoke Hospital,
Holyoke
whatever.
or, yeah, I've encouraged them. I think this community
Definitely need
is
it.
primed for, for better medical services. No, nothing against Valley Medical, but they're kind of on the outskirts and they're not really, I don't see a full investment in the community, but that's just my.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I agree with you, some sort of facility that also, has continuity of care for the transition, through, 50s, 60s, 80s, long-term.
Affordable,
Right, yes.
that's the key. I mean, there's Lathrop, which is a beautiful place, but it's the high end of it.
Right, that's true.
Not everybody can afford to live there.
Right, right.
Ironically, a lot of people come from Connecticut to move there because they think it's cheap.
So Stephanie,
Okay,
I was
we're good.
thinking about possibly the idea of like setting another meeting date,
Yeah.
maybe in April. I don't know if that's, because if we wanted to do something in May, it would
Right.
be nice to maybe meet
Yes.
one more time possibly.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's a date that might work for,
again, we're working on your schedule, which is to have this room, right?
Yeah.
So Thursday, or probably
Thursday
best for you
working?
Thursday
is
evening.
this Thursday? is Thursday a doable
Mhm.
thing? Because we're open already.
Right, I know.
I don't have a problem stretching out though and having, because we have other groups that have come in here in the past and we don't have it at our extended hours, whether it be a Wednesday or something like that. It's not a problem. We can open up the building and have it specifically just for the purposes of this group.
Yeah,
So
this
it's
works
not,
fine.
yeah. So a Thursday, is that what everybody?
Does that sound good? And the time was good for people?
This time was
Like the
great.
25th, because the week before is Easter week.
Oh.
Or do you want to go the 11th?
What's only like two,
No.
Yeah.
3 weeks?
The 25th is-
Yeah, I'd find the 25th.
Monday,
25th?
25th?
Yeah.
So April 25th?
Okay, same time, same station?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so homework is just gonna be, again, look at the duties and see where you fit, I guess, and call me if you have other questions, or if you're really gonna be in the core group, maybe call me, that'd be helpful, and if not, if you know someone else, by the way,
Right.
if you think you wanna be a member, but not in the core group, but you have this shining star next door who could, talk to them, please,
Nice.
okay?
And one last thing, did you guys decide on a name and I just missed it?
No, I-
No,
felt bad.
I think that's part of the process the next month.
Yeah.